Welcome back to the second session of Global Inspiration Day. Thank you to Al Peterson for her great performance during the break. Please connect with us on social media, follow us on social media, and remember to tag Open Design Africa and use our official hashtags when you share your comments. So it's hashtag ODA2020, it's hashtag Open Design Africa, hashtag Small is Massive. The Futures Project is an international not-for-profit organization that aims to change the global dialogue about innovation and the future. Building on the UN Agenda 2030, the Futures Project brings people together across borders and sectors to create shared visions for the future and facilitates action and innovation that brings these visions to life. In spring 2020, the Futures Project launched a global open call to action for innovators for the future. The call seeks innovation projects and initiatives that are making positive and substantial impacts on communities and their futures by addressing the urgency of the moment and staying committed to the future. This session will feature a number of semi-finalists for the 2020 challenge and some of the most inspiring innovators for the future and their change projects and future visions. The moderator of this session is Dr. Julia Stamm. Dr. Julia Stamm is based in Berlin, Germany. She's the founder and CEO of the Futures Project and has invited the following 2020 Future Project semi-finalists to join her in a conversation and to share their innovations for the future. One of the finalists is Venusta Kubimana from Nairobi, Kenya. He's a Rwandan youth activist and a social entrepreneur. Our second speaker is Wainwright Akwa. He's from Liberia, a social entrepreneur who is reimagining the future of secondary education in Liberia. Our third speaker that's joining us is Benedicta Apuama from Asaba, Nigeria. She's the founder of Girls for Development Goals Foundation. And the fourth speaker joining us from the project is Wynand Esbach. He's based in Tsanin in South Africa, and he's the Chief Operating Officer of the Agri-Colleges International. Our fifth speaker and finalist is David. David, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. Let me give it a shot. Indunuwola from Lagos, Nigeria. He's an e-mobility specialist at MAX, a project that empowers millions of people at the bottom of the period. A warm welcome to all of you, and over to you, Julia. Thank you. Welcome.
Can you hear me now? Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this introduction. And thanks also for pronouncing the names so I don't have to do it and I don't embarrass myself. So thank you very much. I'll stick to first names. Yes, I'm really, really very happy to be here and to be surrounded by some of our semi-finalists. I will not spend too much time to introduce the Futures Project. You've done a great job doing this. So maybe just to emphasize that really the Futures Project was born out of this need that we feel that we need to shift our perspective on the way we look at the interaction between innovation, technology, and society. As you also rightly said, we really want to contribute to achieving the UN Agenda 2030. We really think that the world's most pressing challenges need a new way of approaching them, a holistic way, actually, that systematically asks what are the futures we want and how can meaningful and mindful innovation and technology help us to get there. Yeah. So the role of TFP really is to ensure that reflection and action occur in unison with the values and real needs of people and planet driving social and technological innovation. And this is also what led us to launch the call for innovators for the futures that you've already referred to. So this is a call that we launched in May this year. And for the very first time, we're also a very young organization, and our call has attracted in a very short time frame 600 applications from 92 countries, and we're super proud of this success. And we also think that this shows that our approach is something that resonates with people. And so, as I said, I'm really very happy to have 5 of our semi-finalists with me on the stage. We've announced our semi-finalists recently. And so our 5 colleagues here will join me today to really talk mainly about their work and what this means in the context of what the Futures Project is hoping to achieve. So again, a very warm welcome to all of you, to Benedicta, Wainwright, David, Venusta, and Wynand, and also a very warm welcome from my side to all of you who are joining us today and listening in. I will ask all my panelists to introduce themselves very briefly, mainly talking about their work. I've asked them to share and reflect on 3 questions. So what is the problem that you have identified personally? What is the solution and the innovation that you're offering? And then what is your vision for the future? And so they all will talk about this very briefly. And after that, we'll have time to engage in an exchange, I hope. I have a presentation that I hope I can share. Can you please enable the sharing?
Are we enabling sharing for Julia?
This would be ideal, if possible.
Give us a second, Julia.
Yes.
She can't share a screen? Oh, you can share your screen, Julia. There
I
should
can't.
be, you can.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Can you see it?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. There we go.
Perfect. All right. We'll start immediately here, and I ask Wainwright to kick off this exchange.
Thank you very much, Julia, and thanks to every other panelist for joining. Do you hear me clearly? Just to confirm. Great.
Yes, we can.
So yeah, so my name is Wainwright, and I'm originally from Liberia, Monrovia, born there. And I'm currently in the US studying social entrepreneurship. And Tribe is basically a statement and a new movement to see how can we inspire and empower a new generation of young, purposeful entrepreneurs, innovators, and storytellers. Next slide, please. And so just to give a brief background, there's a lot of statistics here and there's a lot of issues with the purpose statement. But essentially, I hate to give this description of Liberia when I speak, but it's sort of paramount to why we are doing Tribe and why these issues persist in the first place. And so between 1989 to 2003, we experienced 14-year civil crisis back in Liberia. And I remember growing up as a young person, as a child with my parents, we often had to hide or escape from the sounds of bullets because when you're hit by a bullet, you die, basically. And so we managed to survive that period. And there are several broken systems that resulted from just that long period of civil crisis. And part of that was a broken education system that has still not been repaired ever since the war ended in 2003. And so 2020, and things are still the same as it was, or not as much better as it was back then. And I remember now we are not escaping from the sounds of bullets, but we are escaping from the sounds of how broken the system is. So now rather than saving our lives, we are saving our futures, right? And so in order to save that future, we need to create the kind of future that we imagine rather than the one that are currently being provided to young people. And so these are all, very frustrating statistics, but just, to be more human in the sense is that education is not working for young people. We realized that growing up, we were told go to school, education is the key to success. But now you grow up and you realize that, well, where's the key? Apparently the lock has been changed on the door. So it becomes a bit challenging at this point in time. Next slide, please. And so because of how the mismatch is between education and what is demanded in the workforce, we've done a few research, we've done interviews, we studied the problem in other countries that we've seen achieve economic growth over a long period of time. And we realized that there is a correlation between how productive and educated our population is and the level of economic growth in these countries over time. And so we came back to say, well, what's happening with Liberia? How can we ensure that we strengthen this education system? But rather than focusing on just, workforce development to be on post-secondary students, how can we ensure that we are building the fundamentals? And that's why our approach is really pioneering solutions to reimagine secondary education, because workforce development efforts mostly focus on post-secondary institutions and not considering high school students as an enabling pipeline towards ensuring that they can achieve career success. And so that's why our focus is there to really build ecosystems that can empower the young people out of poverty. Next slide, please. And basically what we envision is that as we run these programs and build these digital solutions, we want to ensure that secondary students who go through these programs, who are benefiting from this new system that we are reimagining can actually be inspired, empowered, and to create impact. And so we want a society where young people don't have to go to college because first and foremost, not everybody can afford to go to college. College is not for everybody. And there are so many challenges with just not being prepared from a young age for the workforce, right? And so we want to ensure that our students, once they leave high school, they're already equipped with the skills and the tools to one, to be employed, two, to be entrepreneurs, and in case they want to go to college, that should also be a free choice that they're making. So basically, that is the problem we're trying to address, the solution that we are currently testing. And that's what we envision that when we are able to implement these solutions, this is the result that we want to achieve in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wainwright. This was already very inspiring. I'd now like to move to our second panelist, Venuste.
Hello, everyone. My name is Venuste, and Venuste Kubimana. I was born and grew up in Rwanda, but about 10 years ago, I moved to Kenya because I and my colleagues, most of them from East Africa, we had experience of what we can do to help our communities develop, because all of us grew up in communities or in a situation where things were really tough, and we lacked basic needs that we thought every human being should have. But because of where we grew up, or the kind of circumstance we were in, we were kind of like restricted to those kind of basic needs. So we thought, then what can we do to make sure the generation that comes after us should not have to live in the difficulties we lived in? So about 10 years ago, we set up a foundation, International Transformation, to be a kind of a platform for young people to implement youth solutions for the various community issues that have been really hindering us to go forward. So really at ITF, we are a network of young people from a different background, trying to design solutions that are solving issues hindering our community. So most of some of them, really one of the issues we are trying to resolve right now, I'm going to talk about today, is access to clean water and its effect in rural communities. Because one person say, it's not me who said it, but or someone said, water is life. But when you go into rural communities, I had this personal experience, and the most people I work with. When you go in rural villages, you have to walk at least 6 kilometers to get water. So mostly in our cultural setting, children and the women, they are the ones who are responsible for fetching water. So especially for school-going children, you have to get up in the morning, go get water, or after school, you have to come home running so fast to be able to get water for your family if you're going to have food. So in this way, kids are not able to spend enough time studying because they spend all their time getting water for their families. So to resolve this issue, we come up with a solution we call a water kiosk at the school. What we are trying to do with the water kiosk at the school, we are trying to resolve this issue of kids not spending enough time in school, but getting water for their family, and give them the basic education that they need to succeed in their life and help the community develop. So in these times, we set up a kiosk with a sustainable product we design. It has a basic components that purify water in a way that water that gets to the community is 100% clean. But really something that really for us have been instrumental to this project is that we are trying to give this young generation a type of education that they can bridge the gap between work and the school and be able to succeed in the future and help our communities develop. So in this kind of sense, these kiosks are run by the school students. They manage day-to-day operations of the kiosk, just like my colleague was talking about education. These kids who are in primary school, they are running basic entrepreneurship concept when they are still in primary school. So we do believe like once they finish school, they are able to, they have the basic understanding of how economy of a country and the community run. and we're going to support this community grow beyond what we could expect. The other side of this, because this project provides the school with the basic needs they need money-wise, because this is a profitable business. It provides income for the school to be able to support itself in anything they need, just beyond providing clean water. They have money to sustain themselves. So in terms really about the future we envision, really, we have been doing this project for about 6 years now. We have seen so much of ripple effect that comes from this program, just beyond providing water, providing education to the kids. The communities we have been working in, they become so different because of having these basic needs. This is on the screen is an example of one community we work in. I got a chance to visit this school when we were in the process of setting up the kiosk at this school. It was really like a desert. There was nothing. But about 3 years later, when we went to the school, it's really poor community, but they have so much beautiful environment. With the money they make from the kiosk and the water, they have channeled nearby the school compound. They set up they plant nice trees. The environment is so good. So for us, we really envision a community with reliable access to clean water, with the community which is sustainable financially in terms of they are able to provide basic needs to everyone without depending on someone else from outside to support them. So basically for us, that's a basic introduction from my side.
Thank you very much. This was I think, very clear and insightful. Let's now move on to Benedicta, please. Benedicta, can you hear us?
Yes, please. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
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 Thank you for having me. Next slide, please. Okay. Conventional sanitary pads contain a high percentage of plastic, 90% to be exact. And in fact, this has become a cause of concern, for our health and environment. If you look at this slide, you see a heap of rubbish. And judging from the statistics I just gave about the percentage of plastic that sanitary products have, the conventional sanitary products, it tells you that our landfills, the contribution to landfills is high. It fills our beaches and even pollutes our oceans for decades. Cultural menstrual taboos and period shaming have an impact on how menstrual hygiene products are used and how they are disposed of. It's important to note that the conventional products that are available today, they leak, they fail, they are uncomfortable, and a lot of environmental issues are overlooked. Next slide, please. Previous slide, please.
Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So our solution is the Fly Girl Kit. Now, our Fly Girl Kit is an eco-friendly sanitary product that is secure, fitted, and 100% effective for young girls, and it is reusable. It's important to note that a girl uses an average of 17,000 pads in her lifetime. Wow. And what this does is what we saw in the previous picture. It contributes to landfills. That is one girl. Imagine the thousands of girls that we have in my community, in Nigeria and Africa at large. But with our Fly Girl Kit, we're going to be saving the planet of all that plastic, one girl at a time. Next slide, please. Our Fly Girl Kit is a sanitation kit that is cost-effective, it is eco-friendly, and it is very sustainable. Our product is 100% plastic-free, it is reusable, and it's comfortable, of course. Our vision is that in 3 to 5 years, that we'll be able to establish our own reusable sanitary pad factory in Nigeria. And then in the very near future, we hope to expand to the African markets.
Thank you very much, Benedicta. This was a passionate presentation. I really like the girl also in your logo.
Thank you.
All right, then let's move on to Wynand, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All good. Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And it's an honor to be here today. So from Agricologist International point of view, we've identified a number of problems in the African environment, and I will just run through them, the most relevant ones that we've identified and what we are working on at the moment. So there's a lack of qualified and skilled individuals to take up the employment in the agricultural sector, as well as individuals that can develop community projects in agricultural fields in order to uplift their communities. This is a huge problem across Africa, where there are no skills, there are no knowledge, and all the evidence is there to show what the importance is of bringing in modern agricultural techniques to assist in getting better crops and higher yields, especially for those communities to be self-sustainable. The second problem that we've identified is the limited availability of study opportunities in the African environment at traditional bricks and mortar institutions. And that's mainly because of the distances that people have to travel. They have to go relocate to be at a college. And then there's the cost factor at those colleges and the lack of facilities. There's not enough space to educate more people at those physical colleges. And then the last one here on the list of the three most important ones we're tackling is the fact that agriculture is not perceived to be a cool modern career choice amongst our youth. People look at agriculture and they have this perception that it's what my grandparents used to do out in the sun all day. And agriculture's come a very long way. It's become a modern, vibey, funky career choice where you're feeding people. We saw it now during the corona pandemic, where agriculture is what to a very large extent was the only sector in South Africa alone. That was the only sector that grew during this lockdown period, and it grew by 15%. So there's a huge career opportunity for our youth and older people in agriculture. If we can move on to the next slide. So what is our solution? We're bridging that digital divide by bringing agricultural education to the rural areas through our modern e-learning platform, with no limitation on student numbers and at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to go to a physical institution. Those individuals that have already found employment, we all know what the African landscape is like, and to find employment is not an easy feat. So once you found employment, we find it's a big problem for those students now to leave their employment to go and further their career studies. So through this, they don't have to leave their employment, they continue studying while they're actually employed. And this is what we call our Learn as You Earn program. So that has filled a huge gap in the African environment. And then we upskill community members while collaborating with the local communities. So we find a school or a communal place of interest in a community, churches, schools. We train one or two individuals in that community to assist that school. That school then plants a vegetable garden under the supervision of the trained staff member. And they turn that vegetable garden into a small little agricultural business. And they firstly supply the school into the feeding program. And as we know, a lot of these rural schools, those are the only decent meals those kids get on a daily basis. During Corona, it was a huge problem. We have a rural school on the farm where we operate from. And it was a huge problem because those children had to go home and there was no feeding scheme at the school. So through this program, the schools will have sustainability. They also sell all their excess vegetables and fruits, and they turn that money into a little agribusiness at the school. Some of the schools are getting involved in beekeeping. So there's a whole lot of ancillary business that's created around the one little entity. The next slide. So what is our vision? We see, and we're already experiencing it. We've been going for 5 years. The company's been operational, training for 2.5 years since our first course is launched. And we're already seeing economic and social stability. We see community upliftment. We see empowered women and youth, which is a huge drive for us. We have an independent bursary company that operates as a completely independent non-profit company with the aim of 60% of all funds going to empowering women and youth and people with disabilities and marginalized groups. We have a vision of these agricultural hubs, these little agribusinesses across Africa, and they all form part of a network. We're talking to some people in collaboration to establish almost like a franchise where these organizations all become part of this network, supplying into the markets. There's uptake agreements from the market agents. And then we see endless opportunities for all the ancillary business that can be created around one of these hubs. Your fertilizer suppliers, your irrigation supplier, all those companies that supply and take the product again, employ people in local communities. And we've got some of these already operational and it's working perfectly. And this is where we see the future going. So thank you for the opportunity and I look forward to the rest of this discussion.
Thanks a lot, Wynand, for your very, very clear presentation and for painting us this really inspiring vision of the food future.
Pleasure.
So we move on to our last panelist, last introductory presentation. David, please.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Julia. Okay, so my name is David. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. Next slide, please. Okay, so Max is essentially deploying e-mobility solutions to underserved communities. Typically, these communities are hard to reach in terms of connection to the main grid. So they're so far out of the most major expressway that it doesn't make economic sense to set up connections from the main grid there, and therefore they are essentially disconnected from power, right? So what is the problem here? You see a lot of data on the slide, right? But essentially, Africa is currently battling widespread energy poverty. For example, only 45% Nigerians have access to power, which in simple terms is the lack of access to modern energy services, which has become a prerequisite for survival. Taking Nigeria as an example, 50% of our about 200 million population live in the rural areas and have very limited access to modern transportation and battle with very low income levels that essentially limits them from owning their own vehicles, right? These communities are often agricultural communities, like I said, and therefore it is operationally not viable to connect them to the main grid. And they have to depend on transportation by foot, right? So when they go to the farms, for example, to harvest their produce, they have to walk hundreds of kilometers every day because what's the alternative? They don't have train services, they don't have lorries because their roads are mostly unpaved. So those lorries cannot exactly go through those kinds of roads. So the only thing that can go is a very, very slim vehicle. Unfortunately, they are not able to afford this kind of vehicles because they often have to pay upfront. Right. The other side of this problem is the fact that in these communities, many big developers are not incentivized to deploy there. Right. So what we essentially see is perpetual communities. Right. What we've learned in the last few years is that these problems in themselves are interconnected and interdependent. The good news, however, is that their solutions are also interconnected and interdependent. Now, next slide, please. Okay. For the first time ever, we are stimulating energy demand in rural communities in Africa using electric mobility as a viable catalyst to deploy, to drive up productive use of energy. And by extension, attract many developers to deploy in these underserved communities who are typically unable to match the energy demand threshold. Essentially, many developers would want to deploy in these communities if they have the right incentive, The right incentive for them, however, is economic viability. So for example, many developers want to deploy facilities of generating as much power as, say, 70 to 100 kilowatts hour, for example. However, the combined energy demand from the average rural community is somewhere around 20 to 30 kilowatt hour. So we have a lot of these facilities essentially underutilized, right? But the solution we then provide is we provide 2 and 3 wheeler high performance 2 and 3 wheelers that can that essentially depend on electricity to operate. Therefore, we have to charge those vehicles with the underutilized power, which then in return drives up the revenues for the mini grid developer and essentially incentivizes him or incentivizes them to deploy in those kinds of communities. We are also providing clean, affordable, and safe transportation systems using high-performance 2 and 3 wheeler vehicles alongside cutting-edge charging stations that provide access to digital services like the internet and payment solutions. This is targeted at reaching as much as 1 billion Africans as a less and cost-effective alternative to gas engine vehicles, and also essentially help them have more disposable income because the cost of operating these vehicles is in the long run cheaper than the cost of operating the gas engine vehicles. So essentially it drives up their income and for their households also. Last slide, please. Okay, so from this slide you can see pictures of one of the vehicles in a community called Damu Damu. That's in southwest Nigeria. Right. Okay. So the future. First of all, what we've learned, which is going to determine what the future is going to look like. Which is going to define what the future is going to look like is that from our pilot project, of course, in both urban and rural areas, is that the adoptability rate in rural areas is very high, higher even than in urban areas. The people in the local communities refer to the vehicles as a child of the mini grid. Right, and they've pretty much embraced technology. So we see a future of more empowered women because most of these households have women as breadwinners. So women who are able to use their own 2-3 wheeler vehicles for logistics of their farm produce will be able to essentially make more money. And we see more rural communities in Nigeria and Africa at large having complete zero emissions. We see people having access to decent work and generally higher income levels. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, David, and sorry for the glitch in the presentation. I really, I would have liked to even present you some more of our innovators, but I think, the set of the 5 people that have just spoken really illustrates the breadth and the depth of the innovations that we have received. And they all speak to this concept of innovation. For us, the Futures Project really says that innovation ideally really helps to remove problems and simplify the life of users in a meaningful way. So innovation should reduce complexity and make things easier. And this is what I've seen in all your presentations. Also, what I've seen in all your presentations is that you really put the need of people at the forefront of innovations. And this is something that really is very, very essential also to us at the Futures Project. What you're doing really speaks to the empowerment of communities, of women, of children, of people overall. And also I've seen sort of as a red line throughout your presentation, the central role of education. What I would like to do now is really to engage in the discussion for the remaining time, and maybe kicking off with Wainwright and asking you, there are many calls of all sorts out there. What drew you particularly to the Futures Project and our call for innovators?
Thank you. I think particularly is the fact that we are in a world of disaster and there are so many challenges we face currently. And so while it is true that we have to live in the present, I think it's really important we have a critical thought about the kind of future we want to live in, we want to imagine. And it goes beyond just ourselves. It goes to our younger siblings, the other generation that are coming after us, the unborn kids, right? What is that future that we imagine for them? And I think that future really will be determined largely by how, the kinds of innovation that we develop currently. Because I think currently we are benefiting a lot from innovations of the past generation, right? Like technology, access, and all this, and all the brilliant innovations that happened before then. And these people, in as much as they may have enjoyed to an extent, we are mostly the ones who are benefiting from all of this innovation. So I think, the Futures Project, like other like-minded projects, that really ensures that we are placing a premium on creating, innovating for the future, is something that I'm definitely attracted and committed to. Ensuring that we're creating a better future for the young students who are growing up in Liberia and all across Africa and the world.
Thank you, Wainwright. Venusta, I see you nod. Maybe you also like to share some thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with the Akko, because the way our societies learn, there is this interconnection that if we harness that together, I think we can do much better. Like for us, the reason really why we got to apply this is we are looking into the way that to scale up our initiatives across Africa, and it's kind of like you are doing the job for us for the future project. You are getting everyone involved in this ecosystem together. So we want to be part of the network, because once you join this network doing the same thing you are doing, not exactly doing the same thing you are solving, but they're going through the same process. Some have been there already, some they're still probably behind us. So there is so much we can learn, and we can avoid common mistakes. Like really for us, even at my office, we have a team. We have 2 people in my team who are always looking for like opportunities like this to grow our network, to learn from the network, the resources get through this network to be able to make bigger impact. So we really, this connection help us learn a lot. And like, I'm learning so much from you guys. And for us, even like the process of filling up the application, the questions you ask, they open up the way you see things, so you can innovate more, because always open to innovation. Oh, can change this, can do this much better. So for me, the future project, even the application process, when we're going through the questionnaires, you learn so much. You say, oh, I can improve that one, I can improve that one. Yeah, so for me, that's what I want to add on.
Thanks a lot, Venusta. I'm very happy that you also enjoyed the application process. And maybe for people listening in and who haven't had the pleasure of filling that one out, it really contained a lot of also qualitative questions where we've asked our applicants to really reflect on why they're doing what they're doing and how this contributes to building these future visions. So I'm very curious to hear from, and maybe Benedicta, whether this was also something that you found interesting or whether it was a particular burden filling this application out.
Yes, it was something I found really interesting. Like you said, that it enabled me and myself and my team to just sit back and say, okay, we've been doing this. Why exactly are we doing this? We know we're passionate, but why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing it that way? How can we do it better? And I really appreciate the questions, the not exactly back and forth, but the fact that your team of experts want certainty, they want clarity. It actually helps us improve already. Another thing that drew me to the Futures project is the fact that you are interested in contributing to the UN 2030 agenda. That is something I am actually, very passionate about. And unlike other programs that we've partaken of, instead of just training us and just letting us go, you're making us reflect more on the project. And you also apply strategies and plans. It's action oriented. I'm sure that's why we're on Open Desk, Open Design Africa. I didn't know of them before, but because you're looking for a way to give us a platform, put us on the spot, ensure that we put finishing touches to our project and get the best. I really, really appreciate that.
That's wonderful, Benedicta. Thank you. Wynand, I saw you nod when Benedicta was speaking about contributing to the SDGs and the UN 2030 agenda. So this also seems to be something that speaks to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the major points for us is the alignment with the SDGs, the 17 SDGs by the UN. And when we started this company 5 years ago, we went and we identified what the need is and what the actual need in Africa is, and being farmers ourselves and being in the farming environment daily, and having been in education since 1983 when we built the first farm school on the farm. We know what the need is for the rural African youth. And it speaks to us through those SDGs. And that's exactly what we found so interesting. We always try and find 2 or 3 that we align with. And when we started looking at the Futures Project and the questions that were being asked, like Venusta said in the application, we were looking at the SDGs and saying, oh, but wait, there's more than 2 here. There's like 17 if you if you're really reading the questions that's being asked. So it's that intellectual exchange that was really interesting for us. And coming back through the second round, and we're so grateful to be in the top 75 as a semi-finalist, because having to then go and present you with 4 or 5 slides gave us that opportunity to just take our thinking completely out of the box. And it's things that we're already doing and that all of us on this panel are doing, but we don't always put it on paper because we think that everyone knows what we're doing. So it just made us look at it differently and say, this is what you're doing. You're actually doing a great job, and pat yourself on the shoulder and say, well done. You are one of the 75 inspirations in the world. This is not something that everyone has achieved. So yeah, well done to the Futures Project and all the other semi-finalists.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, this also, of course, is very is wonderful for us to hear. David, your last slide referred very explicitly to the SDGs, and where you even, I think, before our call, you were very conscious of the SDGs and how you would like to contribute. So maybe you can also reflect on what we've just been discussing and exchanging.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've always believed that much of the problems that we face as a essentially developing continent is interconnected, right? You solve one, you solve more, right? And so we realized that energy poverty is actually one that is at the very basic level of these problems. And once you can solve for that, you have essentially provided people with what seems to come natural to people in the developed world. People don't know what it means to not have clean cooking and services, right? People don't know what it means to not have the internet, right? People don't know what these things mean, right? And this is the reality that a lot of people face, and in much of these rural communities. So what we're doing with catalyzing or incentivizing energy deployment for the remaining 55% people that lack access, for example, in Nigeria, is essentially solving one problem, but providing opportunity for better healthcare, better education, right? Better, safer transport. People in these communities walk for hundreds of kilometers a day, and that takes a toll on their health, right? It affects their well-being, right? It affects their ability to contribute essentially to their productivity levels. It also affects the environment, right? So they typically will depend on gas engine vehicles, and we also have a solution for this, essentially in electric mobility. So it's one solution with catering for multiple problems. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, David. What I'm really thrilled to see is that what we hope to set out with the call and the Futures Project, that we're starting to really create this community of system change makers, is already happening. And I already see you, and I'm sure you'll probably, hopefully, be also interacting after this panel, and also then with the other semi-finalists. So I'm really very happy to see that. Let's talk maybe about the elephant in the room. I'm really happy that we're all able to connect virtually, but it's been a couple of very, very hard months, I think, not only for us, for all of you, for basically almost everyone in this world. So I was wondering if you could maybe share some thoughts on how the pandemic has maybe impacted the way you look into the future, or maybe also the way you have experienced your work. Has this resulted in any changes? What do you think should be our priorities as we move forward? And now let me maybe start with Benedicta, if you would be fine with that.
Oh, that's okay. The pandemic actually, made us appreciate the things we used to overlook before. Like if the pandemic didn't happen, I probably we'll all be seated in Cape Town now, having this conversation. And then we could appreciate, now I appreciate better the little things we used to overlook. Like I probably could have given you a handshake or a hug, shake hands and all of that. But it's also telling us that there is so much that we can do on our own. Like I'm sitting in the comfort of my home right now, and I can do this. And there's so much impact, we can make even right, on the space, other than just being out there. So that's something that I'm actually learning, and it's really impacted on the work we do. I was having this conversation with my husband, I think yesterday, when we were praying for the section, and I was saying, who would have known that a time will come that I'll dress up and just sit. I'm not going anywhere, just sit in front of the camera, So that's it.
Yeah, I think who would have thought that? And so I just have to congratulate all of you. You've been able to put up this wonderful backdrop that the ODA Festival provided. I have not been able to do that. So congratulations to you. Wynand, you have said, and I was very surprised to hear that, that the agricultural sector was the only one that actually grew during the pandemic. So what has this done to your business, to your way to operate?
Yeah, look, the agricultural sector as an essential service provider just grew and had to provide for the millions of people that were now sitting at home with very little food. So it was a very challenging time, especially in rural areas and people not having money. But as far as the educational side goes, I think I said it the other day in a presentation. Education can never go back to being the same as what it was before the pandemic. And if we allow it to go back to what it was, we've missed a great opportunity. We have managed to unlock something in our youth that was always sitting there, but everyone was hesitant. Every conference, webinar that we attended in education, online education before the pandemic was talking about the digital divide and how this digital divide is influencing our youth and their learning opportunities. We underestimate our youth and their ability, the unbelievable skills that they actually have to study online is something that we didn't know, and now this pandemic has sort of pushed it in that direction. And the other thing that's very positive that we've been saying for the last 3-4 years is just remember that technology, and it's a double-folded positive rather than a positive negative. Technology has never been as fast and as advanced as it is today, which is a great positive. But the other positive side is technology will never be as slow again as it is today. It increases in speed and ability every day. And Corona has maybe just pushed us in that right direction a little bit faster, and it's caught us unawares, and a lot of people were unawares of it. But if I just have to ask the panel here, who of you would have known before Corona how to set a digital background, a virtual background? None of us. Although I've been operating on Zoom for the last 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't have known where to start. But this pandemic has pushed us to go and basically find new boundaries for ourselves and to be more with it in the technological field. And I hope that this education system, not just in agriculture, but the education system in every aspect of what we do for our children has learned a lesson from this and is going to now keep up with the times. And we cannot teach. I can give you hundreds of examples of students already. We've got 23 different countries represented in the 2.5 years that we've been presenting courses. So we've got alumni from 23 different countries across the world. In the most rural parts of Algeria, Nigeria, Malawi, everywhere. And it's purely because they've got access to technology that has allowed them to study, and it's changed their lives. The success stories that are already coming out of our program is unbelievable. I can keep you busy all day.
Thank you so much, Wynand. Winward, I'm sure you would want to continue in this sense of what this actually means for education and also what this has done to the way you operate.
Sure, thank you. I think, the panelists, other panelists have made very brilliant points about, why we did this in the first place and how the pandemic has impacted our work. For us personally, at Tribe, we've been really taking an approach to understanding what this really means now and in the future. And several things that we've discovered recently, is that the pandemic really did not create many or any of these problems. It only exposed most of these problems. And these are things that we've potentially known in the past. And as Wina said, we knew these things or they existed. We just didn't know how to use them. And so like Zoom and other digital platforms, it's the same way with these social issues that we currently face or we're currently being confronted by. And so what we've been seeing is that education system that exists doesn't work. The education we have now was created for a system that existed decades ago or several years ago. It doesn't apply now. And so if we don't take this time to really rethink how we are educating people, that means we miss, again, I reiterate what the winner said, we miss a great opportunity to really create the kind of future that we want. And I think we all can agree that education forms the bedrock of personal transformation, of economic growth, national development. And so there are several things that we've been seeing. And one is really that before we even think about how do we create a new system of education for our students, we have to go back to understanding that this is a systematic problem, is a systemic problem, right? And so we can't address this in isolation. You talk about education, you have to talk about health, you have to talk about well-being, you have to talk about, access. And even now that we see a rising trend in digital education or digital technology into education, it's exciting. I'm very excited about technology, about digitalization. At the same time, I'm also worried. I'm worried because we cannot be taken too, we cannot be taken too far by the excitement and forget that we still have a huge digital divide that exists currently. Other countries, it may not exist, but in countries like Liberia, even now that we want to do digital technology as much as we can, but there are just fundamental problems that we face, including infrastructure, right? Access to internet, data, devices. And so in as much as it's really exciting to talk about the transformation of technology in education, I think that there are these fundamental problems that we still need to address in the first place to ensure that we are not trying to achieve a growth that is creating further disconnect between the future we imagine and how many people we are taking there. Because as we talk about technology, as we talk about systems, we can't talk about these things without considering the people. We must care for the people we serve as much as we care for the excitement and the new wave of transformation that we are experiencing. So that's, for me, it's paramount. And so I think that's something that's taking us back a step back to say, well, how can we rethink the approach we're using? When the pandemic started, we introduced several virtual programs for our students. And it was really exciting until we realized that many students could not afford to learn to be a part of these programs because they don't have access to devices, access to internet. They have bad, network issues. Parents don't understand the significance of of home education, right? These kids still have to do home chores rather than, take their online classes. And so now it becomes an issue of how do we build synergies? How do we build partnerships? How do we build collaboration? Because education in the future should be one that is involved with collaboration, is engaging, and is empowering the individual student, not just, a few of them to realize their full potential. And so as we are taking, a new step to our work, we're already seeing how can we build synergies among whether it's education policymakers, the schools, and the parents, the students themselves, and ensuring that everybody understands the importance and the significance of education, and not just one that prioritizes rote memorization or test taking, but one that is ensuring that the students are actually learning relevant skills to be empowered, and that when they grow up, they know that education is not just another lifetime box to take as an achievement or a requirement, but it's actually a pipeline through which they are being developed and empowered to succeed in the future. So that's something that we're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks a lot, Wainwright. We are coming closer to the end of our sessions, there is a final question I would like to ask all of you. But before doing that, just wondering whether Venus and David, you have anything to add regarding the effects of the pandemic on your work, but maybe rather briefly. David,
okay.
Maybe?
All right, thank you so much, Julia. I would say the effects of the pandemic has been good, both intentionally and unintentionally. For example, airlines are not serving food. Local flights, for example, in Nigeria, are no longer serving food on on the plane. They say this is for health reasons, true, but it also helps them save some money. So, you know, but more directly to the work that we do, we have a lot of access to rural communities in Nigeria, you know, and typically we will provide, you know, transportation services within these communities. However, due to the pandemic, we saw an opportunity to aggregate the agricultural produce from these communities and essentially leverage on our experience as transportation experts for over 5 years now to build a supply chain from these local communities to exporters as far as Netherlands. So you have farmers in rural areas in Kaduna, for example, right? That's in the northern part of Nigeria, having their produce from there, you know, shipped out to as far as Netherlands, and this was not the intention originally, you know, but because of the pandemic, because we saw that the regular systems that they would typically depend on had broken down, it presented an opportunity to help achieve this same result, to help achieve this result faster with less rate, while retaining the quality and as a result of this kind of new service by as much as 40%. So it's absolutely an unintentional positive result. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David. And yes, Vinosta.
Yeah, Judah, for me, really about the pandemic, really about the future, how I look in the future, nothing really changed. But for us, what changes is how we go into the future. Because for us, what we see, yes, the pandemic, I think everybody following the trend on our planet knows things like this is going to happen. I think everybody was following for this for the past couple of years knows things beyond our control is going to happen. But really for us, for me, what the changes is like how we go into the future. How do we give everybody a fighting hand? Because right now, just some people, they are bringing a knife to a gunfight. You know, when the pandemic hit, everyone here is sharing about education and SDGs. SDGs were designed to give everyone like equal opportunity to be on the same level. But when you see the divide, it's just sad. Because when the pandemic hit back in March, I was in the US teaching at college for a short time, sharing our experience. Then when the school closed, everybody just moved online. You know, my thought went back to Kenya, to Rwanda, in a village we're walking, where thinking even like internet, it's nothing to think about. It's something like into the future for the next 50 years. So how do we survive in this same level? The people in my village, maybe there is one person has a radio. How do you to study online? That's really, they bring really, it's a knife to a gunfight. So for me, really just so sad. But the pandemic, what is for me is exposing what we already know is global inequality, because not everyone have basic needs we're supposed to have. So for me, it's like a wake-up call for the global community to work together in solidarity, just to give everybody a fighting chance. Because we know in the future these things gonna keep happening, like based on the science is there to follow. Our planet's compromised. So for me, that's all I can say about the pandemic.
Vinosta, this is, I think, a wonderful connection to this last question that I want to ask. And we only have 3 minutes left, so I would ask each of you to be very, very brief. So really the guiding ODA question is, how do we collaborate and unite in solidarity to create and design the futures we all desire? You've already spoken about the need for solidarity. And if you can just, share really a very short closing thought with me and with our audience, then I'd be very grateful. I will already say thank you very much to all of you and really want to give you the final word. And thanks really so much for your inspiring thoughts. I could have continued for another 2 hours, sure. Wynand. Let's do Wynand first, Wainwright, David, Benedicta, and Vinosta.
I'll be very quick. I think that the biggest thing is that we're great believers in collaboration and solidarity. And there's just too much money that's being wasted on reinventing the wheel. Instead of finding that person that's already out there that works in the field, that's doing what he's doing successfully, and aligning with those people that are already out there doing it. And also aligning the international funding, where there's so much funding that's being wasted on reinventing the wheel, instead of aligning it with what the actual need is, like Vanessa was saying. Get the basic needs. Let's focus on that. Let's put money towards connecting people, connecting them to the internet, and bring down the data costs, which is ridiculously high across Africa. And once we've done that, then it opens the door to the world for so many millions of people.
Thank you. Very briefly, David.
Thank you. I would definitely agree with everything that Wina said. And I would just add that it's important that we recognize our common purpose. And finally, is that we need to empower the local actors like us who live and experience these problems and actually know how to approach this from both a systemic issue and both the logical framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry.
All right, I'll just add a few thoughts to that. My recommendation will be that as leaders of innovation, that we must always see our project, our goals as an instrument towards achieving multiple solutions, right? So approach your work as a catalyst for something more. If you are working in agriculture, for example, ensure you connect success in your project to, say, healthcare, right? If you're working in transportation, like I'm doing, try to find a way to collaborate with agricultural innovators, like some people that we have on the panel right here, to essentially help improve their process and help solve their problems. And then you find out that overall, over a period of time, we would have solved more problems unintentionally than we ever anticipated, while we also solve, the problems that we set out to solve in the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you. Very briefly, Benedicta.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree less with how connected our when we provide solution, how we are unintentionally providing solutions for other sectors. Take my project, for instance. We want girls to have access to reusable, to eco-friendly, sustainable, and cost-effective menstrual products. Now, by doing that, you're solving the problem of environmental pollution. You're solving the problem of education, because statistics has it that girls stay away from school because they do not have access to period. You're solving the problem of the economy, because the more educated girls you have, the more employable they are, the more they boost the economy of the nation. So just putting people together like you are, ensuring that people who are working in grassroots locations, to ensure that we have access to funding. Because if you look at our track record, you can see that we've been able to do so much with so little. So you can imagine if we're empowered just a little bit more again. So that's just it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, what I can add on, really, everybody have really shared most of the ideas, but really for me, what I do think going to the future as a global community, we act as a little family, global family, then try to make better for someone behind us. So if I have already stepped in, someone stepped in the shoes where I have stepped in, make it comfortable for them. So that's really for me, my life goal. So where I have stepped in, someone can easily step in and be comfortable than I was. So that's for me what I can add on this.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So we're back. We're back online. Sorry, just checking with the tech team. We are? Okay, great. Thank you so much to all of you from the Futures Project. It's truly been the epitome of inspiration. Today is Global Inspiration Day, and I'm sort of like still tracked in all that you have shared with us. before our next speaker comes on, I think I'd also just like to say that from an enterprise development, from a business perspective, it's if we look at what the projects our previous inspirers are speaking about, it's really that, everyday problems, and especially in Africa, very basic problems. Many people have suffer with those. So I think you have a great market when you find solutions for people that suffer, that just have these everyday problems. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the wonderful project. I'd also like to take this opportunity to tell you to connect with each other. You can see all of the speakers on our website. The information is there, so connect, because that is what this platform is about. We invite you to stick around and enjoy some local entertainment by Michaela Kleinsmith. But before we welcome her, I first want to welcome Henry Matthys. I'm a big fan of his. He's the V&A Programme Manager with a key focus on social inclusion and placemaking. One of the last comments that was made previously at the session is that I think it was Wainwright that said, we need to be a catalyst for change. We need to be a catalyst to make the world different, to solve problems. So I'm very excited that Henry is going to be joining us. He's responsible for social impact of the business, along with cultural vitality and vibrancy of public spaces. He leads the sustainability portfolio of the waterfront. We've heard a few of our guest speakers from the waterfront talking about neighborhood and placemaking, and I know that Henry is particularly passionate about social inclusion and placemaking. We have many discussions about this. So Henry, in case people that are joining in, and we've heard this a couple of days, for yesterday and today, this placemaking, what does that mean for your role at the waterfront? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Ellen, and good afternoon to everybody watching and listening. Just a point of clarity about our operations executive who's responsible for sustainability across our precinct will be very angry for me if I grab the credit.
I thought about that, but you know what? I thought about that. There is a sustainability. I just want to say that I'm talking about sustainability at social inclusion at a people's perspective.
Absolutely.
That's also sustainability.
So when it comes to people, yes, that's definitely me. And I think to clarify and to maybe just share a little bit more about our precinct before I go into my role, I think that always just contextualizes why we look at social inclusion and placemaking at the V&A. You know, as a business, we're 30 years old, but these docks are over 200-300 years old. We hear stories of our families, their parents, their grandparents coming to these docks, throwing a line off these docks. And 30 years ago, some visionary city planners thought that we need to make these docks accessible to the people of Cape Town once again. Not only for the fact that there's great commercial opportunity in that, but because of industrialization over the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the people of Cape Town lost touch of the water. You could not anywhere in the Table Bay Harbour, because of the harbour, get in touch with the water. So central to this idea of the V&A waterfront was the idea to get in touch with the water. And today, 30 years later, only 23% of the land, the 130 hectares that we manage, are buildings. Everything else is either water, roadways, or public spaces. And the reason people come to the V&A waterfront is to enjoy a little walk along the quayside, to watch a show at the amphitheater, to enjoy the music of the vibrant buskers, to experience the culture of the city of Cape Town. So my role at the V&A waterfront is to ensure that people from all walks of life, locals and foreigners alike, have a sense of ownership, a sense of identity, see a marker of themselves across the precinct, and feel like they're included at the V&A waterfront. It's uber complex, and we can get into how you build that sense of identity and ownership at a place often as contested as the V&A waterfront. But I look at tactical interventions on a day-to-day basis to build markers of people and themselves at the V&A waterfront. That's at a precinct level. As a corporate, we also need to ensure that we play our role inside society. So me and my team, we look after social responsibility. We assist on our shared value ecosystem strategy, ensuring that, in everything that we do, in our products and our services, the day-to-day operations of the business, that we ensure that people and environment stay at the heart of that, along with the potential commercial gains that shareholders often want.
I love that. So that's the context, the social inclusion of the people, and we need people for sustainability reasons, right?
Absolutely.
To continue, I love that you talk about mirroring that. As a South African, as a local, I need to feel included. I need to feel that this space is also for me and take pride and ownership in it. So, and you spoke about social value. So my next question to you is, how does this, when we talk about ownership, when we talk about placemaking, how does this concept of placemaking and create a neighborhood in a high-end business area, what does that mean? How does that work?
I think first and foremost, maybe just a very light definition of placemaking, and there is no fixed definition for it, but it's really it's a human-centered approach to designing and programming space. And it's often used by communities all over the world to drive socio-economic development in often downtrodden areas where they see high rates of crime, high prevalence of crime. It's really about the community taking ownership of a space, really imposing themselves on a space. In the context of the V&A waterfront, it's some of the defining principles upon which this space was built is that people come to an area like the V&A waterfront to experience the space, to walk along the quayside, as I mentioned, to see the drama of the boats on the ocean, to see a boat getting fixed, to see a musician performing on a street. If you don't animate the public spaces, our development team often talks about, every 50 meters there needs to be some activity, there needs to be a use, something I can engage with, then you're not really bringing life to that space. And if there's no life in that space, people aren't going to be attracted to the space. Now when you add issues that our country has faced as the complex layer on top of that, we don't generally, and particularly people of color in South Africa, have a culture of spending time in public spaces.
True.
Because we were excluded from them for a very long time, and particularly the nice one, Clifton and the beaches are often referred to, but people, particularly of color, don't have a sense that I can go to that public space and it's a space for me, and I see myself in that space, and that is a very subjective issue. It's something that takes a lot of hard work to understand and then to tactically intervene. And you can't impose. You've got to take people's experiences and their lived and human experiences and try and bring that to life and create, like I said, a sense of identity and allow them to see a marker of themselves in a space. I tell this story often, but I do walking tours across our precinct, and it's one of my favorite things to do. I actually told it to a couple of colleagues in a meeting yesterday. But on this one particular walking tour, I was doing it with a group of architectural students from Johannesburg, and I asked these architectural students, which they're looking at design and sort of urban planning, what in this area makes you feel included or disenfranchised? And for me, the fascinating part of it all was the diversity in answers that I received from all of them. The one person told me about the building, the look and feel and the style of the building made him feel excluded. The other guy said, well, this one looks like an office block, so I know I don't belong there. Another guy simply told me, well, I just don't see four guys sitting on the side of the street here smoking a cigarette. And that's why I don't feel included here. So we use material manifestations such as music, events, programming, art in public spaces as interventions for people to see that there's a sense of culture and identity in this public space. Today, if you go across our precinct, you'd find 8 to 10 pieces of street art, which 20 years ago we would have struggled to get a graffiti artist to come and paint art on the walls. Today it's a different scenario. It's a recognized art form, but in a sense it's also a marker of where particularly I grew up. I saw graffiti on the walls, and so tactically we continuously looking at the ways in which we create that sense of identity in a space like the V&A waterfront.
I love that you use the example of art as how people relate and how they can identify, and I love that there's so much more thinking behind actively. I think that's what I love about your role and about the work that you do at the waterfront, that it's through art, it's through visual, it's through a cultural experience, and we all have different cultural experiences. Absolutely, right? Yeah. But that you find pockets of those everywhere in the waterfront, and that it's also a place where families can come and you can be comfortable, because there's places for your children to play, and you can sit on a bench and eat an ice cream, and even if you may not belong, it's something that you can only do once a month, because this is not where you do your every week or everyday shopping. So I love that there is that you're so active about, bringing and including. And you're right, it's subjective. Sometimes we don't feel like, it's our own thing, that we don't feel we don't belong there.
Yeah. I think maybe just to add on to that, something interesting we've been doing over the last 4 years as well, is beyond sort of thinking consciously about it, is, you got to put your money where your mouth is and invest into it as well. And one of the greatest examples of that sense of programming and activity in public spaces is for instance our buskers program. So it's quite dichotomous, but around the world busking is seen as a platform for you as a young creative to work on your craft, earn a bit of money, and sort of grow on from there. Rod Stewart, Justin Bieber, these guys that started. Justin Bieber, that video of where Usher saw him, who was busking, 13 years old on the side of the street. In South Africa, it's different, though. In South Africa, it's glorified begging. The waterfront is one of the rare places where you can experience, I believe, some of the best busking musicians, performers across the continent. There's touching stories of A.B. Thomas, who performed on our property for 20, 30 years, Uncle Solly Peterson and the Dixieland Boys, who performed here also for 25 years, playing Dixieland music under the NSRI 3. They brought a deep sense of cultural vibrancy. You saw Uncle A.B. performing there, and so the clubs are walking through the waterfront. It added that activity. But what we've done over the last 5 years is that we've recognized the value that these performers bring to our public space and started investing into the development of them as well. It's critical to understand the value that it brings and then invest into that value, because it may seem intangible to maybe the restaurant next door is just listening to the same musician all the time, but to that visitor experiencing the V&A waterfront for the first time, or to somebody coming from the Cape Flats, to see a mark of their culture being displayed for the world to see, holds a lot of value. So we need to invest in that value as well. So we have workshops with the buskers all through the year. We invest into a lot of education with them. There's quite a number of them that we sponsor to travel around the world. So it's become a really formal program that looks after the development of musicians so that they can graduate and eventually become the defined performers we see on the stages of the world today.
Absolutely beautiful, and I love that you say refined performers. But I think a theme that has come back a couple of times, and I think also fits into the setting of the waterfront, is business, right? So it's a beautiful place. It's a community. It's a neighborhood, but it's also where we do business, and that's everyone. So it's the artists, but also the buskers. And I think I like that idea of that. You say investing in. I think it's enabling them also to create more opportunities for themselves. I'm going to go to my last question to you, and that is really, so yesterday we spoke about, there were global inspirators that spoke about Africa rising. It was displaying how the arts combined with technology, combined with people from all over the world have been able to not only create a living, but also really showcase the magnificence of us as people, of what we have to offer and why we should be proud of it. You speak now about placemaking, and the last session that we had was very much about global inspirators as well, the Futures Project, and they're also creative people, but it touches on very basic concepts such as clean water, such as food security, such as menstrual health and girls therefore being able to go to school and create a future perspective for themselves. How does that fit into the placemaking, the strategic objectives that you drive from social inclusion, a summit like Open Design Africa?
So, the V&A waterfront, in my opinion, is Africa working. It is a story of what is possible when you bring the right minds around the table and you think consciously about the impact that you're making. I was fortunate to catch some of Tiniko, our marketing executive's interview with you yesterday, and she spoke about our purpose as a business. And we've done a lot of introspection as custodians of this beautiful piece of real estate to understand, why do we exist? And I want to base my answer on a little bit of theory that we utilize to drive innovation and African innovation across our precinct. And it really centers around creating equal value and creating value not only for your shareholders, but for society, for the producers, the people behind that, and for the environment. And how we do that is by creating not only natural collision, but by actively stimulating the collaboration between various different entities. So we drive innovation, job creation, and economic development at the V&A waterfront, conscious of the impact that it's making, and to drive positive societal benefit, to grow the economy in an inclusive manner, to drive economic development and job creation, but that we need to learn outward as well, to showcase the cutting edge innovation that can be implemented in communities across South Africa.
That comes from communities.
That comes from communities across, and give it a platform. So Open Design Africa, and this is why we invested and built a partnership with Sune and the team. Open Design Africa is a platform for the young inspirators, the young designers, the young innovators of our continent to come alive. And all we want to do is be a platform for them to showcase to the world the beautiful, inspiring stories of what Africa can achieve if we try.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you for your time. I could spend hours speaking to you. I love how you ended off saying that, we provide a platform, and I think that's exactly also what Open Design Africa is about. And it's incredibly inspirational to, when we take time to look at all the things we can actually achieve, and as you say, when we try. So Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be back at 1:20 to introduce the Utopia project, Making Better Cities Together, with Yoka Quintens from Marseille in France. Now let's welcome Cape Town musician Michaela Kleinsmith. Thank you.